Welcome, bienvenidos, benvindu to the Soccermetrics Copa Libertadores show, a production of Soccermetrics and Soccer Down Here, the only English language podcast devoted to South America's premier club competition. I'm your host, Howard Hamilton, the founder of Soccermetrics. There are 3 weeks between this episode's recording and the semifinals of the 2024 Copa Libertadores. In between that time, I'm going to take a break from the immediacy of this year's tournament to tell you more stories about the players and managers who contributed to the greatness of the competition, introduce you to the women's version of the Libertadores, and finally, take your questions. I start this episode the way that I always do on a non-match week, with the news surrounding the Libertadores. And I start with news item number 1, away fans for semifinal. This is a report on TC Sports' website in which River Plate officials are having internal discussions with respect to away fans for the semifinal. Now, if you follow football competitions in Argentina, there are no away fans for league competitions, especially for matches in the city and province of Buenos Aires. But in CONMEBOL competitions, clubs must reserve 4,000 tickets for away fans in Libertadores semifinals, and there's a significant fine if an away team requests tickets and the hosting club refuses to grant that request. Now, from the club's perspective, they would prefer to see local fans only. They want to see that home field advantage maximized, particularly in a stadium like River Plate's, which is now the largest football stadium in South America at 84,000. But they don't want to deny a road trip to Belo Horizonte either to their home fans. And a trip to Brazil is always a special experience, especially in Libertadores. Now, in the Colo-Colo series, away fans were present only in both legs of the quarterfinal tie. So it's really going to come down to whether or not Atlético Mineiro choose to exercise their right to request away fans' presence for the Libertadores semifinals. More often than not, you do see away fans at the semifinal ties. So it will be interesting to see what happens. I think if Atletico requests it, then River will grudgingly accede to that request. But I believe that their preference is to see local fans only for their home tie, for the home leg of this semifinal tie. Now, for Peñarol versus Botafogo, that situation is a lot more straightforward. Peñarol fans will be allotted 4,000 tickets for the away leg in Rio. Those tickets are only available to members of the club. And they're trying to ensure those tickets are sold in Uruguay, avoiding a situation in which away tickets that were made available to Peñarol fans were only sold in Brazil. News item number 2, Tiche let go. On Sunday, September 29, Flamengo fired former Brazilian manager Tiche. This actually happened on Monday, September 30th. Now, Flamengo had defeated Atlético Paranaense 1-0 on Sunday in Brasileirão play. That was actually a last-minute goal that gave Flamengo the win. But the damage had been done when Flamengo were eliminated in the Libertadores quarterfinal by Peñarol. The 63-year-old manager, former manager of Brazil, won the Rio State title in the early stage of this year's Brazilian football competition. And that was the only honor that he won. And that is frankly unacceptable to a club like Flamengo. They're currently in 4th place of the Brasileirão. They're 11 points behind Botafogo. And Botafogo don't look to be in a self-destruct mode that they were in last year. They're also in the semifinals of Copa Brazil, which has a direct berth to Libertadores. But Chiche has been under a lot of criticism for his tactics, for um, for his substitution patterns, for his lineup choices, and really the Libertadores was his last resort. If he didn't win Libertadores or come close to winning Libertadores, such as reaching a final, the chances were really strong that he would have been let go. The new manager of Flamengo is Felipe Luis, who's 39 years old. He formerly played for Atletico Madrid as a defender, and he spent the last 4 years of his career with Flamengo, where he won 2 Brazilian league titles and 2 Libertadores titles. He's currently serving as the under-17 and under-20 coach with Flamengo. And finally, news item number 3, fan incidents surrounding matches. Once again, we have a regrettable situation where away fans are causing disturbances in and around stadiums, causing significant amounts of damages, and CONMEBOL has to step in and impose some sort of punishment to the club. The situation that I'm referring to happened in Belo Horizonte, when Fluminense were defeated by Atlético Mineiro. Fluminense fans were reported to trash turnstiles, fences, seats, and bathroom piping and fixtures. They were also involved in confrontations with the police, and there was pepper spray being deployed by police, and also clubbing of fans by officers. Now, the actions of this minority of Fluminense fans were caught on closed circuit television, and Atlético Mineiro issued a press release in which they condemned the quote-unquote absurd behavior. And it frankly is absurd behavior. Mineiro forwarded their complaint to CONMEBOL. It is all but certain that CONMEBOL will impose some sort of financial penalty on the Fluminense club. And now, the Copa Libertadores Femenina. So as you can guess by the name, this is the premier club competition in the women's game in South America. What connects the Copa Libertadores Femenina to the CONMEBOL Libertadores is that every team in the men's competition is required to have a women's football side as well. And failure to have one results in forfeiture of their entry. The women's competition started in 2009 with 10 teams as a World Cup-style tournament in a single country. It's since expanded to 16 teams, but the format is unchanged. There's a group stage with 4 groups of 4 who play each other in a single round robin. The top 2 teams advance, and the final 8 play in a single elimination knockout tournament. As you would expect, this competition has been dominated by Brazilian clubs. Brazilian teams have won 12 of the previous 15 editions, including the last 5 in a row. Only Colo-Colo, Atlético Huila of Colombia, and Sportivo Limpeño of Paraguay have won a Libertadores Femenina title. Every champion from the 10 CONMEBOL associations is represented in this competition, as well as the title holders, an additional team from Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Paraguay, and an additional team from the home country. The competition this year takes place in Paraguay, in and around the capital Asunción, and starts on Thursday, October 3rd. The quarterfinals are on October 12 and 13, the semifinals on October 15 and 16, and the third place match and final on October 19. There are significant prizes on offer. The winner of the 2024 Libertadores Femenina receives $2 million. The runners-up, $600,000, and the third place team $250,000. The winner of this competition receives about as much money as the winner of the UEFA Women's Champions League, but there is significantly more prize money to go around in Europe, and teams other than the champion receive significantly more money. Now let's go over the four groups and introduce you to the 16 teams in this competition. And we start in Group A. The head of the group is Corinthians. They are the defending champions. They're also the defending Brasileirão Feminino champions, and they've won this competition on 4 occasions. Also in the group is Boca Juniors. They won the league and cup double in Argentina, and they were the 2022 runners-up in Libertadores Femenina. Making their first appearance in the competition is Adifem, who are the 2024 champions of Venezuela, and Libertad of Paraguay, who are the third place team in the Torneo Clausura in the 2023 season. Their best appearance, their best performance was in the group stage of the competition. Group B is headed by Olimpia. They are the 2023 Torneo Clausura champions in Paraguay, and their best performance was a quarterfinal run in the 2023 tournament. Next is Colo-Colo, who won Libertadores in 2012. They're the 2023 champions of Chile. Always Ready, the Bolivian champions, are in the group. Their best performance was a group stage appearance. And lastly in the group is Santos of Brazil. They were third place in the Brasileirão Feminino, and they won the competition on 2 occasions in 2009 and 2010. In Group C, we have Ferroviária. They were runners-up in the Brasileirão Feminino competition in 2023, and they're a 2-time winner of Libertadores in 2015 and in 2020. Next, we have Dragones IDV, which is the feminine version of Independiente del Valle. They're the champions of Ecuador. Their best performance in this competition has been the group stage appearance. Peñarol are also part of the group. They're champions of Uruguay. They won the Uruguayan Championship in 2023, and their best performance in this competition has been a group stage appearance. Lastly in the group, we have Santa Fe of Colombia. They finished second place in the Colombian competition in 2024, and they were runners-up in Libertadores in 2021. And following Group D, we have Deportivo Cali, who are the champions of Colombia. Their best performance in Libertadores was a 4th place finish in 2022. Guarani, the champions of Paraguay, are also in Group D, making their first appearance in the competition. Alianza Lima, champions of Peru, are also in the group. They made a quarterfinal run in 2021. And wrapping up Group D, we have Santiago Morning, who were runners-up in the Chilean competition in 2023. Their best performance was a quarterfinal appearance in 2019, 2020, and 2022. So who are the favorites in this competition? I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on women's football, particularly women's club football, but it's safe to say that the Brazilian clubs are a considerable distance ahead of the rest of the competition. Yet, an all-Brazilian final, which has become a more common appearance in the men's version of Libertadores, has only happened twice. And more often than not, the knockout teams are likely to come from Brazil, Paraguay, Colombia, or Chile. It's no coincidence that those 4 countries have additional berths into the Libertadores Femenina. Yet you do have some surprising teams from time to time. For example, Venezuelan clubs have been finalists in Libertadores Femenina on two occasions in 2014 and 2016. Boca Juniors, who are definitely not a minnow, but not one of the huge powers of women's football in South America, were a finalist in 2022. It is a difficult format to navigate. These players will have to play a maximum of 7 matches in 16 days, and that works out to one match every 3 days. This is a format that rewards depth. Talent can carry you very far. It has carried a number of these teams from non-major countries very far in the tournament, but it's a format that ultimately rewards the depth of your squad. And if you are rewarding the depth of your squad, Brazilian teams will always have the advantage. So if you're looking for teams that are more likely than not to finish at the top of this competition, look no further than the Brazilian clubs.
In this final segment, I'd like to present a historical vignette. I've been presenting these historical vignettes on either a player, a coach, a club, or an event that forms part of Libertadores folklore. In this segment, I want to talk about La Cabeza Mágica. He is arguably Ecuador's greatest football player, and he is one of the best football players from South America. In addition to this, he holds multiple South American goal-scoring records that still stand today. Yet, he's largely unknown outside of South America. In fact, when Pelé, in association with FIFA, presented his 100 greatest players, this player was not on Pelé's list, to great criticism from knowledgeable people within South America. I'm talking about Alberto Spencer. Alberto Pedro Spencer Herrera. Alberto Spencer was born on December 6, 1937, in Ancon. It's a coastal town on the southwest coast of Ecuador that is known as the birthplace of Ecuador's oil industry. He had a Jamaican father who worked for the main oil company, and his mother was a local Ecuadorian woman. He had one brother who was also a professional football player. Like many youths of his time, he learned to play soccer on the dirt fields. And in 1953, he joined Club Everest, thanks to his brother. Club Everest is a traditional sports club. It is located in Guayaquil, which is the second major city in Ecuador along the Pacific coast. At the time, Club Everest was in the middle of its golden era. It was one of the most dominant clubs at the provincial level in the province of Guayas, which includes Guayaquil. The other major club is Barcelona Sporting Club. In 1955, Spencer made his professional debut. So over a period of 5 seasons, he appeared in 90 matches for Everest, scoring 101 goals. Those goals gained the attention of the selectors of the Ecuadorian national team. In 1958, he appeared for the Ecuadorian national team in the Campeonato Sudamericano, which we would call today La Copa America. He scored 1 goal for the Ecuadorian national team during this tournament. And while he was playing with Everest, he was runner-up of the Guayas Championship. Guayas is the provincial championship in this region of Ecuador. His play with Everest and his play with the Ecuadorian national team, particularly in the Copa America, attracted the attention of a number of foreign clubs. Inter Milan were one of those clubs and had approached Everest with an offer that was rejected by the Ecuadorian side. Peñarol approached, Peñarol being one of the two giants of Uruguayan football. They were very persistent about making an offer. They reportedly, through intermediaries, showed Spencer pictures of Punta del Este and Montevideo, and asked if he was familiar with Uruguay and would like to live in Uruguay. And the charm offensive actually worked. Peñarol eventually signed Spencer. They paid Everest a $13,000 transfer fee, which is about $140,000 today. Not a small amount of money, but not a large amount of money either. And Alberto Spencer became the first Ecuadorian player to play abroad. He debuted for Peñarol on March 8, 1960, in a friendly match against Argentine club side Atlanta, and he scored a hat trick. Now, Alberto Spencer was a very talented player. He was very physically imposing. He was ambidextrous, so he was strong not only on his left foot, but also his right foot. He was fast. He had excellent off-the-ball movement. He had a reputation of having a very strong shot in both feet. He was a great finisher, but what he was principally known for was his aerial ability. And it's because of that aerial ability that he gained the nickname Cabeza Mágica, the magic head. In fact, a lot of his goals were scored by way of headers. So he took the Peñarol very quickly. He's credited with being part of Peñarol's 1959 championship winning side. Now, this might be a little strange that he joined the club in 1960, yet is credited with Peñarol's championship in 1959. The reason for that was that the championship final in Uruguay for the 1959 season took place in March of 1960. Spencer appeared in that match. Peñarol won the Uruguayan league title, and he was credited with the 1959 championship. In 1960, he was present in the Primera proper. He participated in 16 matches, and he scored 10 goals and contributed to Peñarol's championship-winning side. He would go on to win 8 titles in the Uruguayan championship. In addition to 1959-1960, he won titles in 1961, 62, 64, 65, 67, and 68. So 2 periods in which Peñarol won the Uruguayan championship 4 years in a row. And he was the leading goal scorer on 4 occasions, 1961, 62, 67, and 68. By winning the Uruguayan title, he was able to play in the Copa Libertadores. And the Copa Libertadores was where Alberto Spencer cemented his reputation as one of the greatest goal scorers in the history of South American football. In 1960, his first appearance in Copa Libertadores, he appeared in 7 matches and scored 7 goals. He appeared in the first ever Libertadores match against Jorge Wilstermann of Bolivia. Peñarol won the match 7-1, and Spencer became the first player to not only score a hat trick, but also score 4 goals in a Libertadores match. He would go on to score a brace versus San Lorenzo in a semifinal tiebreaker, and he scored the only goal versus Paraguayan giants Olimpia in the final. He was the leading goal scorer in the first edition of Copa Libertadores for Peñarol, who won their first Libertadores title. Peñarol would go on to play Real Madrid in the Copa Intercontinental. They went down to a 5-1 defeat over 2 legs. Spencer scored the lone goal for the Uruguayan side with 10 minutes to go. with 10 minutes ago in Madrid. In 1961, Peñarol entered in the semifinal round, which was customary for holders of Copa Libertadores. He played a total of 4 matches and scored 3 goals. He didn't score in the semifinal against Olimpia, but in the final versus Palmeiras, he scored the lone goal for Peñarol in the first leg, a 1-0 winner in the 90th minute. Peñarol repeated as champions of South America and participated in the Copa Intercontinental. On this occasion, they defeated Portuguese side Benfica 5-1 in aggregate. They lost 1-0 in Lisbon, but they won 5-0 in Montevideo. Spencer scored twice. In 1962, he again participated in Libertadores over 6 matches, scoring 6 goals. Peñarol would enter the tournament in the semifinal round versus a fellow Uruguayan side, Nacional. In the first leg, Peñarol lost 2-1. They won the second leg 3-1, thanks to 2 goals by Spencer. And the third match, Spencer scored Peñarol's lone goal in a 1-1 draw, and Peñarol advanced on goal difference. In the final versus Brazilian side Santos, which was a long-awaited matchup between Pelé and, which was an anticipated matchup between Pelé and Spencer, it didn't happen because Pelé was still recovering from the beating that he took in the 1962 World Cup. Peñarol lost the first leg 2-1. Spencer scored the consolation goal. But thanks to a brace by Spencer the second leg, Peñarol won 3-2. This match was suspended because of fan aggression towards the referee, and the last 40 minutes of the match were played under protest. So the tiebreaker took place under a very controversial setting. Santos wanted the match postponed by 2 weeks for a couple of reasons. One, they wanted a European referee to be present for this tiebreaker match, and they wanted to give enough time for Pelé to recover from his injuries. Those requests were granted by CONMEBOL. The match was played at the end of October, and Santos would go on to defeat Peñarol 3-0 and became champions of South America for the first time. Yet it wasn't all bad for Spencer. He finished this season's competition as the Golden Boot winner. In 1963, he returned with Peñarol to Libertadores. He participated in 4 matches and scored 5 goals. What was most sensational about this season's participation in Libertadores was that Peñarol had to go through the group stage this season, that particular season. And that season, they faced off against club side Everest, Alberto Spencer's former club. Everest had just won their first and only Ecuadorian championship. Everest would go on to lose 14-1 on aggregate. The first match ended 5-0. The second match ended 9-1. And all of Spencer's 5 goals in the 1963 Libertadores were scored in that 9-1 match. In fact, Spencer is the only player to have scored 5 goals in a Libertadores match. In the semifinal, Peñarol would fall short to Boca Juniors, losing in both legs 2-1 and 1-0. In 1965, Spencer suffered an injury which ruled him out of Copa Libertadores. But in 1966, he returned to the competition, and he returned in style. He participated in 12 matches, and he scored 6 goals. Peñarol topped their group in the first phase of the competition. In the second phase, which is another group stage that decided who would participate in the final, they topped their second phase group. In the final versus Argentine giants River Plate, Peñarol won the first leg 2-0, but lost the second 3-2. Spencer scored the temporarily winning goal at 2-1 before River turned around the match and won 3-2. In the tiebreaker match, the match was tied 2-2 after 90 minutes, and then Spencer scored what turned out to be the winner at the 101st minute. Peñarol added another goal 7 minutes later for a 4-2 win, and once again, Peñarol were champions of South America. This team would go on to play in the Copa Intercontinental versus Real Madrid, and they produced one of the most sensational results in the history of the Intercontinental. Only Santos's performance in Intercontinental versus Benfica ranked above this performance. In the first leg, Peñarol defeated Real Madrid 2-0. Both goals were scored by Alberto Spencer. In the second leg, they repeated that performance in Madrid, defeating the Spanish Giants 2-0, Spencer scoring a second goal. So his 3 goals in the Intercontinental, his 6 goals total in Copa Intercontinental are second only to Pelé in the history of the competition. 1967 represented a turning point to Alberto Spencer's career. He had just turned 30, and in that era in football, turning 30 was essentially the peak of one's career. He returned to Libertadores play with Peñarol and participated in 3 matches, and he scored 2 goals. But in the semifinal group, Peñarol again had direct entry into the semifinal, having won the competition the previous season. They finished 3rd in their group, which was bottom of the group. He scored 5 goals total. The team scored 5 goals total. In 1968, they once again returned to Libertadores competition, this time entering the group phase. So over 14 matches, Spencer scored 10 goals. Peñarol finishing 1st in the group, and then 1st in the group stage, and then advancing to the semifinal versus Palmeiras, where they lost over 2 legs, 1-0 and then 2-1. In 1969, once again, Peñarol were in the Copa Libertadores. They topped their group, and they topped their group in the second stage, which happened to be a 2-stage group. And then they faced off against fellow Uruguayan side Nacional in an Uruguayan Clásico. They lost the first leg 2-0. They won the second leg 1-0 thanks to a goal by Spencer. And the tiebreaker ended in a scoreless draw, and Nacional advanced to the final on aggregate. So in this season's version of Libertadores, Spencer scored 2 goals. Spencer's last hurrah for Peñarol occurred in 1970. They went on a tremendous run that culminated in a final against Estudiantes de La Plata. They finished 2nd in the group stage. They played in the second group stage and came in first in that group. And then they faced off against Universidad de Chile in the semifinal. In the first leg, Spencer played but did not score as Peñarol lost 1-0. In the second leg, Spencer appeared and scored for his side as Peñarol defeated Universidad de Chile 2-0. And in the tiebreaker match, in that third match, the match ended in a 2-2 draw, and Peñarol advanced to the final in aggregate. Unfortunately for Peñarol, Spencer was injured and was not able to play in either match. The first leg ended in a 1-0 defeat to Estudiantes, and the second leg ended goalless. So Estudiantes became champions of South America once again. This ended up being the final participation for Alberto Spencer in Libertadores for Peñarol, and it represented his final appearance for the Uruguayan side as well. In 1971, he transferred back to Ecuador and played for Barcelona de Guayaquil. In 1971, Barcelona appeared in Copa Libertadores. He played in 11 matches with Barcelona, and he scored 5 goals for the Ecuadorian side. In the group stage, Barcelona came in first in the group. In the second stage, Barcelona came in second, which forced them to exit the tournament at that stage. They did not advance to the semifinal round. 1972 represented Alberto Spencer's final participation in Copa Libertadores. He once again returned to the competition with Barcelona. Barcelona came in first in the group stage. In the second stage, Barcelona finished in third and advanced no further. In the group stage, Spencer scored a goal versus Bolivian side Chaco Petrolero. That goal represented Spencer's final goal in Libertadores competition. He would retire from professional football at the end of 1972. So the final record of Alberto Spencer's career is the following. He scored a total of 451 goals for Everest, Peñarol, and Barcelona de Guayaquil. For Peñarol, he made a total of 519 appearances, the most for a foreign player, and 5th overall. And he scored 326 goals across all competitions, the most for a foreign player in the history of Peñarol, and the 2nd overall for all players who have ever played for Peñarol. His 18 titles won for the club ties him for 4th among most titles won by a Peñarol player. Most importantly, his 54 goals scored in Libertadores competition makes him the all-time leading goal scorer, a record that still stands over 50 years after he retired from Libertadores play. And he scored in 36 Libertadores matches. 31 of those matches were matches that Peñarol or that his team won. 3 of those matches ended in draws. 2 of them ended in losses. And once again, his 6 goals scored in intercontinental play were second only to Pelé. And he has the distinction of scoring in every Libertadores final tie. So not necessarily every match that represented a Libertadores final, but in either a first leg match, a second leg match, or a tiebreaker, he has scored in at least one of those matches. In his later years, Alberto Spencer would go on into football management. He coached Universidad Católica of Quito in Ecuador, and he led them to a runner-up finish in 1973, and he was named coach of the season. He went on to coach Emelec for a couple of seasons between 1975 and 1976, and he coached at a number of smaller clubs in Ecuador, Uruguay, and Paraguay between 1973 and 1982. Yet his runner-up finish with Universidad Católica represented his best performance as a club manager. He would go on to settle in Montevideo, and he became an Ecuadorian consul in Uruguay. In 2006, Spencer, who was suffering from cardiac problems toward the end of his life, was transferred to the Cleveland Clinic in the US to undergo bypass surgery. In October of that year, he suffered a heart attack during a routine checkup. And on November 3rd, 2006, Alberto Spencer, La Cabeza Mágica, passed away at the age of 68. He was survived by his wife, 3 children, and a number of grandchildren. Spencer's body laid in state in Guayaquil and Montevideo, and he was buried in El Parque del Recuerdo in Montevideo, according to his wishes. Alberto Spencer was best memorialized by Julio Maria Sanguinetti, who was the former president of Uruguay and, at the time, an honorary president of Peñarol. Sanguinetti said the following: Alberto possessed a style and a mark that can never be duplicated as a footballer. But above all, he was a gentleman of sport, a great man in and out of the field of play, who in his life had opponents, but never enemies. End quote. And he would go on to say, quote, the world came to know of Peñarol as the team of Spencer. That's how great Alberto was. And he really was that great. Alberto Spencer would go on to be named the best Ecuadorian footballer of the 20th century. And he was named the sportsman of the 20th century by the Ecuadorian Olympic Committee. In 2005, the International Olympic Committee gave him the Fair Play Prize. And today, there are multiple stadiums in his native country that are named after him, particularly in Guayaquil and his home province. One of the nicknames of Club Everest is La Cuna de Spencer, the birthplace of Spencer. And in 2023, the surviving children of Alberto Spencer lobbied CONMEBOL to name their Golden Boot Prize in Copa Libertadores after him. Such is the reputation of Alberto Spencer in the history of Copa Libertadores that it's quite shocking to me that this prize isn't already named for Alberto Spencer. The fact that his record still survives after 50 years is a testament to his achievements in the competition, and really being alongside Pele, being one of the first great players of the Copa Libertadores competition. And that concludes this historical vignette on Alberto Spencer. So if you want to follow me and send a comment or question, my X handle is @Soccermetrics. You can also send comments or questions to @SoccerDownHere or to Jason Longshore @Longshoe. We'll answer your questions about the tournament in a future episode, and we really do appreciate your comments. I'll be back next week with another episode. This has been the Soccermetrics Copa Libertadores show, a production of Soccermetrics and Soccer Down Here. See you later. Hasta luego. E até mais.